Why, good day there, everybody. How's it going? Is it Thursday? I think it is. It's Thursday, January 26th. And of course, there are sports. So first, let's get it out of the way. If anybody needs anything from me, algorithm, advice, or whatever, if you need anything from me, you have until January 31st to ask me. After that date, I cannot promise I'm going to respond to you or be able to respond to you because I am moving on into a whole other area of doing things. YouTube videos are not going to be about sports anymore. There's going to be tax and there's going to be a bunch of other things. And it was time to move on in life. And so the sports algorithms publicly are uh, are 99% sure they're not happening anymore after the 31st. But I'm going to get through the month because there are commitments through the month. But after that, I'm moving on. And I can't do this publicly anymore. So that is bad news for a lot of my subscribers. Thank you for helping me get my watch hours up. I'm like 102 watch hours away from being monetized. I really appreciate it. But the sports algorithm stuff is just, it's not going to be the focus. I've done it for years. And I have to say that the impact it has had on my life has fluctuated, but overall it is a negative one. I don't look forward to like watching games and betting on them at night anymore. I'm totally burnt out from that. I've lost a bunch of money, even though the algorithms win, I lose. And so it's just totally time to move on. That being said, there's sports today, and I will do videos through the rest of January because I kind of have to. And also, we're going to go over not only college basketball, NHL, and NBA, but in NBA, I did more work on the on this cool macro that runs a bunch of different percentages, and it showed some interesting things. Like yesterday's games would have done much better. They actually go 8-2 yesterday with field goal percentage as the only factor. That's a different combination than the one we used. We used the U to win a one from yesterday. If you watched it, that one did terrible. Went 3-7 yesterday. So this is a learning process when it comes to finding statistically significant variables. And these ones were really significant on Wednesday. So we'll talk about NBA at the end, though. Let's actually first start with NHL. NHL had a good day yesterday, and of course I lost. I mean, look at this. It goes 2-3. Oh no, sorry, Edmonton blew it late. That sucked. I took Dallas, Carolina one. I took the Islanders. I told everybody to take the Islanders. Of course, they cannot score and hit the net. I mean, it's just like it is unbelievable how terrible my instincts are. This is an exact score that goes to overtime. It's actually a tie that goes to overtime. And Seattle blows it out of the water after I say Vancouver's got a new coach. You should play them. Just don't ever. This is another reason I can't do videos anymore. Don't ever listen to me. Like I'm sick of telling everybody bad information when the algorithm's telling them the right thing. It's just too much. So today there's a ton of games, and this is the order. And Colorado, should I go to the game? They're playing Anaheim. That'd be fun. Go bet on Rantanen and McKinnon to score and go watch them score. That would be fun. I don't think I'm going to do that today, but I could. There's probably tickets. That's a bad team. That's the number one pick, but the line is, that's right, minus 400, everybody. Here you have the Jersey over Nashville. It's number 2. Boston, of course, over Tampa Bay. Get a better line of Boston. They're such a good team. Like Tampa Bay is also a good team playing well. It should be a great game. That is the marquee matchup of the night would be those two. So that's an amazing game right there. Those are two playoff teams, that will meet right there. Winnipeg over Buffalo. It's a 5th pick. And St. Louis over Arizona. Grice in net. I don't trust that. Expect some goals in this game. I don't mind giving you advice on that one. When Grice is in net, bet there's going to be some goals, even though it's Arizona. And then Detroit over Montreal. All right, so there you go. That's NHL. Let's go to college basketball. So college basketball, I built something in here yesterday, and it was related to, oh gosh, I got implied lines in here. Whoops, I forgot. Well, I'll talk about implied lines too. I did a couple things to this file, and I may as well talk about them. So I was discussing, people have been asking me about how do you rank these picks, all right? And let's back up. Let's back up to yesterday, even though yesterday has changed slightly. It was not as good as what you're seeing. You're seeing 37-10 it was more like 32 and 15 or something. Stuff moves around because I update the stats for the new day and I don't change the formulas because I want to use it for testing. It's a long story. So this looks a little better than it actually was, but it's going to prove a point, which we're going to talk about, is there's a running profit total over here if you just bet money lines of games. Okay, so let's like shrink all this for a second. Let's shrink everything over to margin. Okay. So what this is showing is if you bet on this team to win over here, this is what it pays. Hold on, let's move this over. Let's shrink this a little bit. Like if you'd bet Purdue Fort Wayne to win at minus 2,000, you would have won 5 cents if you'd bet $1. So your net profit for the day, if that was the only game you bet, would have been 5 cents or 5%, actually, 5% ROI for the day. This rolls and continues to show if you won or lost the game, what it paid and what your profit was. And it was an interesting day up top for away teams. I wanted to look at home teams because really you're supposed to be betting home teams. So if we just click home teams, what happens? It was just Western Carolina. I had them, of course, and they lost. Guess who else I had? Mercer won. I had Mercer. I had Chattanooga and they lost. And I had Connecticut and they lost. These ones down at the bottom. But there was a lot more winning up top here. And so what's interesting is you're still profitable. Let's get rid of this bottom part. I'll colorize better. Your best spot of profitability was probably, it should be over the 10% margin range. Okay, the margin range is right here. So it should be everything above here. And I don't know if these games were all there, but it looks like you only missed one yesterday. If this was the same order, it's probably about the same order. Some of these might have been higher. Auburn might have been higher or something, but it looks like you went about 18 and 1-ish, 17 and 1-ish on those. That was profitable, meaning if you bet straight bets on all of those, you would have been up 1.88 units overall. If you're betting the same unit, that's $1.88 if you're betting $1 a game. If you're betting $100 a game, you're up $188 on the day, making $1,700 worth of bets or $1,800 worth of bets. So that is there to look at for those that want to make straight bets down the line because the algorithm is supposedly putting these games in order. Okay. So now I also built this implied line and I was asked about this implied line. And so what happened there? All right. So let's talk about what I did here. And it's not perfect, but I can discuss it. So when, people are always like, well, what's the number one pick of the day, for college basketball? And I go, well, the margin is supposedly telling you the most distorted matchup of the day. It's saying Purdue Fort Wayne supposed to crush IUB, right? And they did. They only actually won by 6. They didn't even cover, but they won and they were supposed to win, right? Well, the problem is they were minus 2,000. So I was asked I was thinking about how do you know where there's value? Well, here's where there's value is supposedly in this implied line that I've created. And the implied line is a very basic formula right now, and it probably needs to be adjusted slightly. So it's certainly not perfect, but it is representing an idea. And the idea is, the idea is, after I burp, is that the difference in the game is going to result to a different spread of points that happen and subsequently a different line. And so what the implied line, and this is a very extreme game where Purdue is really heavily favored, but my implied line was only minus 623, meaning if you see a line that is worse than 623, like minus 2,000, if you see a line like that, then supposedly there's not enough value according to the algorithm for you to take that team, or you're overpaying to take this team to win at minus 2,000. You should only pay minus 623. I don't know if this number is perfect yet. It certainly isn't, but it's an idea. And you can see it starts to go down and you're like, all right, well, what about this one here? Nope. Here's one. It'd be like take Asheville, because it's supposed to be a minus 441 and they're only minus 425. So here's a comparison where when this number is higher, a larger positive number, right? So it's a large negative number at minus 425, but this is a larger negative number. So this is better. So just go down the list and you're like, all right, no. Oh, sorry. Yeah. sorry, yeah, no, 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 yes, right? New Hampshire. New Hampshire was a yes because they should be at minus 274 and they were only minus 250 and they won. Good. How about this one? Love it. This would have said stay away from it. Says that the implied line is minus 259 and you got to pay minus 300 and they lost. So this one would say no, don't do it. This one, no, no, almost, but no, almost, but no, almost, but no. Yes, it would have said take GW because they're supposed to be minus 183 and you could have got them at minus 175. It would have said no here on Maryland. It would have said no on Mercer. It would have said no on Auburn, who lost. It would have said yes on Chattanooga, who lost. So they should have been minus 152. They were almost minus 125, but they lost. It would have said no on San Diego State. It would have said no on Connecticut, who lost. Said Connecticut should be minus 133. This is where you start to get some value down here. It said this game should have been minus 133 and you had to pay minus 260. Yep. This one would have been a no, even though they won. All right. So you getting it now? Like there's an implied line and there's a money line. All righty. So let's look at today. Oh, by the way, well, there's a bunch of other games there too. We could have gone through all of them, but let's just go through today because I was too curious about yesterday. So here's today. And if you want to sort this, let's do it. Let's do education. Let's talk about the calculated field that we can write to do this. So let's insert column here. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something called a calculated field. And a calculated field is where you can compare. I mean, actually, I could just write it over here. I don't have to do it in the pivot. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it outside the pivot, but you can also do it in the pivot. What we're talking about is it's going to be implied line when the implied line minus, or is it plus? Like, what is it? Let's see here. This is line differential is what we want to do. All right. We want to say like, all right, this thing is minus 702 and this one is minus 1500. Actually, no, hold on a second. I want to do the number, but I also want to say like, where is equals if this number is greater than, less than. So when this number is less, that's what we do. When this number is less than this number, then that's where we see value. Okay. So that minus that, comma, we'll say that we have value, like, or we'll just say value pick, because that's where our implied line is better. All right. So, and it's going to be a false otherwise, comma, we'll just make it a blank. And this is going to show us where the value picks are for the day. And I also want to see what that value pick number is. See that they just started to pop up right here. So these are our value picks. Like Arizona is supposed to be at minus 399 and they're only at minus 190, but they're away. I mean, you want only value home team picks, really, because away teams, you never know if they're going to win. And there's 5 of them. Okay. So our value picks are Southeastern Louisiana should be minus 377. They're only minus 305. Western Illinois should be minus 243. They're minus 200. Stuff like this. So as you can see, I've done a lot of work and there's a lot of things to go through this, but the implied line is getting as close to something that is really concrete that you can just stare at and be like, well, does the algorithm say play this game? And so the algorithm's answer on UNC Wilmington is 2 answers. The answer is yes, you play that game because they're going to win. And the answer is no, you don't bet a lot on it because you should be getting a better line at minus 702. You shouldn't be paying minus 1500. So then maybe you shouldn't bet them because you're overpaying. And that's kind of, I mean, I'll keep track of the implied lines and how those games do, but for those that have asked me about sports betting advice about where to bet and why, the comparison between the money line and the implied line is about as good as I can do. And it's rather easy to do in a sport like college basketball. Are there any underdogs today? Yeah, what are the implied lines on the underdogs? I'm interested to see because the implied line thing, I wrote that formula really fast. Like it probably needs more work. It's not perfect, but it's certainly saying like Milwaukee would beat Wright State and you get this underdog. Like this is really cool, actually. So it's not perfect, but it's something. And we'll keep an eye on it. And that's about as much energy as I'm going to put into that. But that so implied lines are in there. Just because I randomly thought that it needed it after it's been brought up. So that's that. Now let's go over to NBA real quick. Let's close out of hockey and save that. Let's close out of college basketball, save that. And let's go to NBA. So the interesting thing with NBA, there was late injuries. Just got such a disaster trying to get this out when injury reports are changing. As you can see, Denver, which is a team I told everybody to play, and I did bet them at plus 270 under a distribution. There's a lot of interesting things going on here. Let's go to, we had in distribution number 75 was the one that we used yesterday. And it resulted in this. Oh, what happened to Denver? Go back. It was number 75. And I believe it was this. I think so. Anyway, it had some weird wins up top, but it lost a lot of games. And so I ran the macro. If you watch the video about the macro I did yesterday, I ran the macro and it turns out that historically there were better things we could have done yesterday. All field goal percentage crushed it yesterday. All adjusted offensive rating did 6-3 yesterday. What does that look like? Well, I'll show you what that looks like. So the combination testing, the one that's all field goal percentage all the way down here. It's this one. It's number 13. Okay. So let's go back and put in number 13 retroactively for yesterday. What does that look like? So it's weird, right? Like it's got a bunch of wins, but it's still got Denver on top. Our margins are really low. It's clearly not a good stat. It's probably just an accident that field goal percentage was so good yesterday. Like, what about the other one that did really good, which is adjusted offensive rating was 7-3. Well, adjusted offensive rating is this one. It's number 11. So let's see what number 11 looked like. This one, margins are still all screwed up and it still has Denver on top, but Denver's injuries were their health is not 100%. Their health was 56% yesterday. There's a second snap. Oh God, it's so complicated. This is why I have to stop doing it, guys. This is total crazy database management. I'm not feeling it. Like I have to abandon the public work. It's just public work I can't handle. I'm doing it like privately. I'm not doing it publicly. Like I can't do it anymore. But it's really complicated. It's really complicated. And I have more work to do on this. Honestly, I have to run a bunch of different combinations. I talked to a friend today and we're going to come up with a better distribution of combinations because this is, as you can see, it's just a lot of 10s and 5s. Like it's not a good equal distribution. There's way more we need to put in here. And I've just been messing around. So what do you do today? Well, I'm tempted to want to try to build a percentage that uses more of these ones because they had such good days yesterday, but I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I just have to, guys, I don't know. I haven't done, like, there's a ton of more work to do with this. But yeah, like you can look at the whole season. It's still the U to winner one is still the one that's on top. I'm looking at the whole season when I unfilter this. That's still the one that has won the most. But there's a lot of reasons that data could be spurious because I have incorrect injury percentages in the past, but it's still 61% of the games win, right? But if you want to like go with the hot percentages, right, then you do something like this. And I got a bunch of zeros here. It was field goal percentage, offensive rating, points per game. You got to have points per game in there. And I'll throw margin of victory, 15%, and then 10% on wins, losses. So this is new number 14. This has a lot of the stats that were relevant here. Margin of victory, win loss. Sorry, the one for the day. These ones that did well yesterday. Field goal, offensive. Oh yeah, possession. I need to do something with possession. Instead of margin of victory, I'll make that 5. I'll make possession 10. Okay. So we've put those in there under combo number 14. So we'll run combo number 14. We'll see how would have this thing have done yesterday. First of all, that's what this shows. And the answer is 5 and 5 with some reasonable margins up top. And you lose that weird game where Denver's injured and it's not showing that today. So that's acceptable. Their number, actually, I'm not hard code that in. Let me show you what their number was because I forgot to freeze it when I was doing this. So complicated, guys. This is so complicated. If I am screwing stuff up all the time with Excel file I built, this is so complicated. Let me show you what happened because it will change this. Yesterday's game, which is right here in the cube, Denver, they were actually at 56% health, not 100. Okay. So you have to change this to 56. It's not the formula that was here. I actually need to get rid of these formulas and freeze them, but now they're wrong because I updated. It's a long story. I already updated them, so they're already wrong. But I just changed that one to 56. Watch what that does. Watch where that moves them. See how it moves them to the losing? Their health still says 100. Why? It's weird. Just change it to 56. Freeze. Refresh that again. Why? You're supposed to say 56. You should say 56, right? 125? Did you just change that? Where's that game? Didn't I just change this? Denver Nuggets, 25. 56 is their operating. Oh, right here, because I got to put it over here too. Sorry, that's why. Because it's the, okay, now it'll work. So voila. See, this is what Denver actually was. All these day-to-day guys were out. I actually posted in the video, if you'll see me, their line moved to plus 500 from plus 290. And it's because 4 guys that were day-to-day decided to be out. That happened at the last minute. I reran it and it shows them losing. So of course I tell everybody to play them in the video. Then nobody plays on their team and they lose. Yet the algorithm said they would lose under this distribution. So that's how frustrating it is doing YouTube videos about these games when information is changing all the time. Anyway, I'm going to go with distribution 14 because I'm okay with this from yesterday. So what does that look like today? And there's, oh God, the mouse is doing this thing again. Okay, there it is. These are today's games. We have a slight underdog with Dallas over the Suns and not good lines, but we think this Spurs game could actually be closer than you think and not like the 12.5 points for San Antonio that they will cover that because it says the Clippers only win by 7. So this is a distribution. Now let's do one other cool thing before we're done with the video. Let's go to this compare pivot. Let's look at today. All right. So somebody asked me, well, how can you like run all the distributions by team? You can do it this way. It's going to show you how many times the distributions picked a certain team when we move the team up here. So this is another way of saying, well, which team is so consistent that the algorithms pick them the most. And the game is not showing up because wins and losses are not showing up. So we would have to do what? We'd have to put scores in here. What would we do? Or no, there's a projected margin of victory number here. And I guess the highest number kind of matters here. Interesting. So if you sort this, sort the team by descending projected margin of victory. This is the sum of all the projected scores and how much they would win by. So in the 100 combinations with Cleveland, it has them winning by 20 in combination 67 against Houston here. Okay. So it's saying that of all the teams, the team that would win by the most if you added up all the projected margin of victories from all the 100 combinations, it's Cleveland. And this is essentially the question we're trying to answer. And also look at this, like how close is this supposed to be? Like what's going on here? like, is Phoenix actually supposed to win this game by projected score? Like, these games are apparently insanely close. No, they're not. I don't know why there's a 2 and a 6 here. It's really these big number teams that are supposed to win. I know we're kind of trying to analyze what the heck is happening in this pivot table, but I am trying to mess around with it to give you different looks. And I think this is kind of a weighted order. What does that order look like here? Yeah, it does say Cleveland, Brooklyn, Chicago. It's this, right? It's this order. And I think it flips Dallas and Boston a little bit, and it flips Chicago, but it's basically interesting. It's basically a similar order. So that's a weird way of looking at things. We'll find better ways to look at things here before the end of the month, before I really finalize this. And I do want to give everybody an NBA percentage that is working well and is consistent and has some basis to it after I do all this testing. But I want to see if we can, get better than a 62% percentage overall. But that's really cool. What about if you do this for the whole season? What happens then? It's going to show you the best teams on top, right? It should. Let's find out. It's taking a while. It's such a big pivot table. Got more records in there today than we did yesterday. Yeah, it says the Celtics are the best, then Memphis, then the Sixers, then the Nuggets, then the Kings, then the Cavs. Well, we're learning. We're learning a lot. We're testing. So that's the update. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy. May all your picks be winning. You've got 5-ish days of me doing videos, and then yeah, it's true. I'm probably not going to be doing videos anymore and moving on to other stuff for other than sports. Even though I've been doing sports for a lot of years and a lot of sports, it's time to move on. I'm getting older, and it's time to do this as just a segmented thing and do other stuff, and that's probably what's going to happen. So good luck, everybody. May all your picks be winning.